So LaMelo is going to the Hornets. Sure, the center position is probably the easiest position to think of for this Hornets team, but let's be honest, this roster is not good enough to draft for need. You need to draft who you think is the best player, and there's reason to believe LaMelo can be the best player. His playmaking skills are probably already amongst the best in the league, whether it's playing in the pick and roll and throwing a pass down to a guy in the corner, lobbing it up to a big guy, a dump-off pass. He's got the height to make skip passes, I would say. Reading double teams, anticipating what the defense is going to do. LaMelo can do all that stuff right now. Sure, he probably needs to get a little bit better at maybe appreciating the simple play more so than the highlight play every time. But I see no reason as to why LaMelo can't be a 7-8 assist guy pretty early on in his career. Now, there are going to be questions about, well, it's Devontae, it's Rozier, it's LaMelo. How's this all going to work? I mean, if Terry Rozier needs to get traded to accommodate LaMelo, then you just do it. As far as Devontae, I mean, if LaMelo brings it defensively, which has been a question, how much does he really care about defense? He has the size to do it. He's got the length to do it. But does he have the defensive mind? Does he have the real will to do it? But if he does, defensively, I think those two can work. And offensively, yeah, why not? They're both, well, Devontae is a good shooter. LaMelo, you can picture being a good shooter. I mean, his percentages have not been the worst thing in the world. His form is not awful. It's more so his shot selection because he likes to take threes with defenders in his face and that sort of thing. But if you can just rein that stuff in, and he already has reined some of that in from high school, then I think him and Devontae can work. And even with that said, if it can't work, if, Devontae's not comfortable playing off the ball, if LaMelo doesn't like the amount of possessions in which Devontae is running the show or whatever, you still make the move, because it's not a guarantee that happens, but if you think LaMelo's the best guy, you just take him and you figure it out from there, okay? I mean, is that not the best passing backcourt? I mean, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, given Booker's improvements, that one might be the best one, and there's probably a couple others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but with those two's skills to hit the open guy and pass it to cutters and throw lobs up to PJ Washington, more so Miles Bridges, I would say. Maybe Cody Zeller if he's healthy. We don't know. The Hornets still have to do something at the center position. I feel like the Hornets could be kind of an okay offense next season. Not amazing because, I mean, it's Devontae's third year. It's LaMelo's rookie season. Well, granted, if LaMelo's is like Ja Morant of last year, then maybe they could be that good right away. Maybe they could be like the 10th best offense or something. But I would think, assuming the rest of the guys are at least okay enough and there's some nice shooting around those two, could they not be like the 13th or 14th best offense in the league? I don't think it's insane to believe that. These are two really good passers who can create offense for themselves and create it for others. I mean, with LaMelo, there are still some other questions about how willing is he to draw contact at the free throw line, and does he need to keep on getting better at his pull-ups and that sort of thing? That's all fair, but I just don't think LaMelo's going to be this 13, 14-point guy who kind of struggles to score. Like, he can beat defenders. There's reason to believe his shooting can be good. And while this doesn't matter as much for this upcoming season because we're not going to have fans, we hope that by 2 years from now we're going to have fans. We're going to need some outside forces to do some things with that one. But LaMelo's going to get people to come to the games, and the Hornets need some people to come to the games. Now, I think one thing that could be really, really crucial for Charlotte is if they get a center who can set screens for Devontae and LaMelo, especially if it's a guy who can also pop. Now, granted, there's not a lot of guys in the league who can be a threat to roll and pop, but there's more than zero. And that would be really cool, because then they could be really tough to defend. I mentioned Terry Rozier. Does this immediately make Rozier a trade target for some other team? I kind of feel like it does. By the way, this takes the Westbrook stuff completely off the table. I think that's pretty much a given. But Rozier can be an asset for somebody. I mean, I guess, could you find a way to make it work? Maybe, but we already saw Rozier as a sixth man on a team that had a bunch of guys who wanted to do stuff, and it didn't go very well. So you might not want to repeat that this time around. And I think you could get a bunch of good offers for Rozier. He had a nice season for them, but he's not LaMelo. Now, perhaps there's a crazy world in which you play all three of those guys. I mean, they already played two of them, and LaMelo is 6'7". But I don't really know if I want two other ball handlers next to LaMelo. I think LaMelo, if you draft him, you are giving him the ball, you are letting him run pick and roll, you're letting him ISO, you're telling guys to space out, and I think you have one other guy who takes some possessions away from that. And to me, that guy's got to be Devontae. Now, I'm still a little freaked out with Devontae's 2-point percentages. Like, his mid-range stuff is not good, and he doesn't take as many free throws as you'd really like him to, but granted, it was his first season taking over the offense, so I don't think he's a finished product just yet. But still, I'm pretty intrigued with the Devontae LaMelo thing. Now, is there perhaps a world in which Devontae and Rozier are out? I mean, perhaps, but I wouldn't bank on it. I feel like Devontae was good enough to where you got to hold on to him. I mean, the guy shot 37% on 9 threes a game, and a lot of them were unassisted three-pointers. That type of guy you don't want to give away too easily. To think about the rest of the roster, I mean, PJ Washington and his shooting was pretty good his first season. 37% on 4 a game. I liked PJ Washington. Seems like a guy who can do a bit of rolling, bit of popping, maybe some post-ups, although I definitely don't want post-ups when I have LaMelo, at least not too many. So I think he can definitely play a role with this team. Miles Bridges, I just mentioned he can catch lobs, and that is true, but look, I think LaMelo is going to be pretty legit, and I feel like Miles Bridges is one of those guys where once you have the real centerpiece of the team, he could get pushed out. I mean, he shot 33%. I think he has other value. I think he can grow into a good finisher. His free throws are good, and his rebounding is pretty all right. But you just might want a knockdown guy next to LaMelo now. Because I just picture a pick and roll with LaMelo getting a screen from, I guess it's Cody Zeller as of right now. And sure, teams can switch that. They can go under. They can do what they want. But there's ways to get LaMelo going downhill towards the rim. Devontae spotting up, PJ Washington spotting up, big guy rolling or potentially popping if it's not Cody Zeller. And then if I got Miles Bridges, who defenses don't have to care about as much, it kind of kills the whole thing, you know? So I think it could make sense to not get rid of him now. I mean, he's going into his 3rd season. I'm not saying drop him now. Definitely give him a chance. But just based on how his first 2 years have gone, if I had to pick anybody who might just have to get kind of bounced on top of Rozier, it could be Miles Bridges in this scenario. Now, this is all assuming LaMelo ends up being really, really good, which I think he can be. I think he is a Rookie of the Year candidate. I think he is immediately one of the best passers in the league, and I feel like his shooting can be good in the NBA. I really do. Forgot to mention LaMelo's rebounding. That'll bring an extra dynamic thing to this Hornets team that they haven't really had. I mean, Devontae doesn't really grab too many boards. Most of their boards were coming from big guys. It's just the conventional thing, whereas LaMelo can get out in transition and create offense a little bit more, and will be one way for Miles Bridges to have more value with this team if he's not making three-pointers like that. But I don't want to crap on Miles Bridges too hard. He did make a decent improvement from year 1 to 2 as a three-point shooter, so he's got a chance. I'm not saying he's got no shot to fit in with this roster 3 years from now. But yeah, man, I like this move. I do. Like, Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham, they're not good enough to not pick LaMelo.